Doreen Grand-Pichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet.
Dr. Doreen Grand-Pichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Erica A., who I see is watching today, said, how do I approach, when we were talking about ABA last week, she said, how do I approach bad behavior to my child if he can't understand me? He's nonverbal.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really great question. And fortunately, you don't really need to understand language in order to change behavior. Because behavior is controlled by the antecedents and consequences, so things that happen before it and things that happen after it. So essentially the answer is when a bad behavior occurs, and I don't know how you're defining a bad behavior, but something that's challenging to the child and to society, when something like that happens, then you can reduce it by making sure that a reward does not follow it. It's really that simple. And rewards don't have to be just like an object that's tangible or food or something like that. Rewards can be, avoiding an activity. Rewards can be getting attention. Rewards can be getting the actual object. Lots of different things, right? So as long as when the child does that particular behavior, no reward or no reinforcer follows it, then that behavior will just decrease. That's just the way it is. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times we think we have to, reprimand the child. That kind of stuff is actually attention, and a lot of times that does not work. So you start with each challenging behavior occurs for a different function, for a different reason, in order to gain a different reward or reinforcer. So as behaviorists, you have to start with trying to identify the function of that particular behavior that you're trying to change. So when your child does something that you're calling bad behavior, first ask yourself, if your child could communicate, how would they communicate why they're doing that? Are they doing it because you just asked them to do something and they're trying to avoid doing it? Are they doing that behavior because they don't want to comply with the demand you just placed? Are they doing it because they want to get out? They don't know how to ask for a break? Are they doing it because they want an object that somebody else has? What is the reason? And once you've identified the reason, then you make sure that challenging behavior doesn't give the child access to that particular thing that they were trying to gain. Instead, you teach the child to, let's say, touch an icon or, give you an icon, a picture of the thing that they wanted. And then that will get them access. But the challenging behavior will not give them access. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's one of those things that it takes a while to understand. I'll be honest, it took me years to understand simple ABA concepts, because you guys would say things to me. We were talking about this yesterday. In fact, it was when my desk broke that I was talking about the difference between ignoring a behavior and ignoring a child, and that behavior is communication. That if we don't but see, you understand that completely because you're a really good clinician and you've worked in this field forever. But when we come in as parents, we don't understand that. The behavior is communication. And that if we get all emotional about the behavior.
Oh, of course.
And if we could separate and step back for a second and go, wait a second, what do I think my child is communicating to me? What you just said was, if my child had the ability to communicate, what would they say?
What would they say?
If we just looked at behavior that way and understood, okay, they're communicating something, and sometimes the communication is not effective communication, and we could make that communication more effective, and sometimes it's actually harming the individual. And so we should want to figure out what it is that they're saying. That's really the crux of this. So when people say that they don't like ABA, I go, oh my gosh, you're missing the big picture.
Yeah.
There's nothing that is more pro the individual than good ABA if you're really following good ABA.
100%, Shannon. And, you know, there's a second part to this. Like, you find out what the individual is trying to communicate, right? And that's great. But what if that thing that they're trying to communicate, or the way that they're doing it, is, as you said, harmful to themselves or to someone else?
Yes.
What if that should happen? So, for instance, and you can apply this, by the way, because I'm seeing George is commenting about self-stimulatory behavior and saying the same thing. And you can apply this to any part of autism, to be honest, because this is one of the interesting things I always tell parents when I'm diagnosing autism. None of the challenging behaviors are part of the symptoms of autism. They're just a side effect because the individual cannot communicate in any other way. So they develop these behaviors, right? If I also could not communicate, I would probably, I mean, you go back in time before there was language, right?
Yeah.
And we'd hit the person and grab what they had because, hey, that's how I could
That's where you got
communicate
it.
that I need to have that, right? Whatever it was. And the same thing holds true for anything else. It doesn't matter. For the individual, now remember, if I hit you because I want an object, right? Let's say there's two children, the child hits the other child and grabs the object. It's quite functional for me. It's very adaptive because it works.
Right.
Let's say I tantrum in a classroom and they take me outside. Hey, that really worked. It's wonderful. What else do I want? It's fabulous.
Yeah.
But it isn't functional or adaptive for society. It's not okay for the sibling. It's not okay for the thousands of moms that I've seen, including yourself, who have bruises and bites and so on and so forth. That's just not a way that this individual can go through life, right? Because if the person is hitting others, or even self-stimulatory behavior, right? If they're all day long just doing self-stimulatory behaviors, they're not able to go to school, get a job, make friends, they'll be isolated, all these other things happen. So once you've identified the function and you understand what they're trying to say, good ABA gives you a more adaptive way to get that need met. Whether it's a challenging behavior or it's a self-stimulatory behavior, it doesn't matter. I can also do, you know, an arts and crafts period of time where I am self-regulating by playing with finger paints and sand, or I can do a sensory diet where every 5 minutes I can put my hands in my pocket and there's some sort of fidget thing that I'm playing with, but I am still functioning in society. I'm not hitting others. I am not, you know, I'm not exhibiting behaviors that are going to end up isolating me. Yeah. And that's the key. And, you know, I love Parker, as usual, always has the best comments. I love it. And Parker is bringing up, I saw, he said that there's a lot of self-advocates talk about how bad ABA is for the individual, right? And I always say ABA is a choice. It's a choice that your parents make for you, and later it can be a choice for adults. And it is just a teaching technique, just like going to school is, right? Going to school is really no longer a choice. People go to school, you put your child in school. Child's not necessarily, most children have a hard time when they first start school. But they learn that in school, I can't run around. In school, when I want to ask a question, I have to do this. In school, I have to wait my turn. In school, I have to, you know, stand in line. In school, I can't interrupt others. There's a lot of stuff that you learn, as well as the core academics that you're learning. And why do you learn those things? You learn those things so that you can participate and be part of society. And it's the same thing, absolutely, with whether or not the child has autism or any other diagnosis. I am not okay with saying, just leave me alone. That's totally fine. But if your parent chose for you to interact with society while you're a child, ABA providers have to follow what your guardian suggests for you, which is do our best to teach you how to interact. when you're an adult, if you are functional, if you can hold down a job, if nobody else has to take care of you, that's really important, right? Because I could also say, I want to stay home. I don't want to do anything. I just want to stay home, hang out, watch TV. And somebody could come and why are you guys trying to change me? Why are you trying to teach me that I need to work? Why is that? It's the same exact thing here. We teach our most severely affected individuals with, let's say, Downs or other developmental disabilities to do something adaptive, functional, get a job. Because that way they can be part of society, they can be motivated, they can be rewarded, they can interact with others, and that's what life is.
Yeah, that is what life is. And I always say to people, you know, it's funny because we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of, I know this because I'm about to turn 60, which is crazy.
Me too.
Next month. And I remember when it was my 50th birthday, friends had a birthday party for me. And my son, it was 10 years ago, and he was doing very well. But there were still some things, because we're all working on things, right? I'm working on things, right? There were some things that he was working on. And there were some aspects of just going into being around preteens that because he would have been 10 years ago. And so we were at this party and things had changed, where before they would all play in this room and there was a pile of toys, but now they were preteens, tweens, and teens in the room, and they were all on their computers and they were playing a game together. And my son wanted to play in the worst way, but he couldn't get his computer to connect with the Wi-Fi, and it was this, you know, it was 10 years ago. It was harder back then than it is now. So it was this exercise in frustration, and he kept trying the whole party. And I was in the other room, and I would come and check in, and he was distraught. I can't get my computer, and he would say, "Can I borrow your computer?" And the kids were like, "No, I'm using my computer." So it ended up with him laying in the hallway of the foyer of the house on his stomach saying, "What do I have to do to get them to play with me?" And I said, we have to go home right now. Thank you so much, everybody, goodbye, because I could not watch my child be in that much pain. But I immediately, you know, he was done with ABA at that point, but I immediately called my team and I was like, what do I need to do? And they helped me troubleshoot through all the things. And we had like 22 play dates where he would connect his computer in different circumstances so that he would learn, what do I do? And sometimes we would have it so that he couldn't, and then to deal with the feelings and to communicate and find something else to do. Because he wanted connection. And I think that most people want, and we want it in different ways, admittedly, but we want connection. And our dear departed Joanne Laura always used to say, everyone deserves a seat at the table. And that having a job and knowing that you matter and that you contribute is the single most important thing. And I remember there was a time when parents used to say, oh, but my child's never going to be able to do that. And I have seen kids that are nonverbal, considered the severest of the severe, have a job and like change as a result of that. Because they know that they are a part of things, that they're a part in their own way, not trying to fit them to a mold, or you must do it this way, or you must, but how about you belong? When we talk about inclusion, I think when we argue and say, whenever somebody is saying, well, that's how they are, don't try to change them, that to me is, don't teach them. And I'm opposed to that in every shape and form. In any case.
And you know, I want to say, because like right now, and I want to just thank some of our folks who are like handling this dialogue that's going on, because we do have someone on here who is adamantly refusing to listen.
And entitled to their opinion.
Totally.
And entitled to not listen.
Absolutely. But I see that so many other folks are trying to get them to listen. But you guys, it doesn't matter, because in society there are always folks who resist change. And there are always folks who want change. And that's just society, right? I mean, like we grow and we learn, or we don't. and we remain and we dig our heels in and we say everybody around me has to change to adapt to me.
Yeah.
Or there are others who say, no, I'm going to adapt to society. You know, as you know, I have a dear friend who is on the spectrum who's my neighbor.
Yes.
And I love watching him because he just boldly goes out there and is constantly changing and constantly learning new things. You know,
He's amazing.
I love things like he'll just come to one of my parties and he'll go around and interact with people, and he does his absolute best to continue to interact in one way or another, right? Yep. But that's because he is learning all the time. Yep. He's learning how to stand on the corner and catch the bus. He's learning how to go to a job and come back. He's learning how to adapt to other people. He's not, you know, spending his entire day at home self-stimulating. And believe me, he has some need for self-stimulatory. I'm sure he engages, just like all of us do, in some of our own self-stimulatory behaviors. But the truth is, my dad used to say, one of the things you learn in life is how to moderate everything to the medium, right? No extremes. And that's really what it is. It's like learning how much of each thing can you engage in each day in order to continue to still be part of society.
There you go.
If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.
Don't forget, you can watch Ask Dr. Doreen live every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time on autismnetwork.com. We hope to see you there.